Alright, so I got it popped loose. Just about ready to pull this front cover off for possibly the first time since this fan was made. 105 wonderful, long years. For the first time that I've ever seen it, possibly anyone since it's been made. Let's see what we got under here. Ooh, that's exciting. Got more coils than I initially expected. Let us pull the rotor out. There we go, look at that. Alright, so here's what we have going on. If I pull the 1/16 inch metal rod out, which it's wedged in there pretty good, I'm not sure if I can, but anyhow, where these rods are going down through is where I drilled the holes. If you look real closely, there's a green line right by where I'm pointing there. That is where the stator used to be positioned at before I started essentially punching it out with this method. So I can tell if it's moving or not by going off of that line, and I can also tell if it's coming out straight or not. Because one of the main things you got to watch out for when you're pressing out or punching out, since you're using a hammer and pins, is to make sure you get that stator coming out straight. If you start to hit one side more than the other, it'll start to go on an angle and could jam on you, and then you have to start over. You're starting to work to straighten out that cylinder of the stator inside of this housing. So to show you exactly what I've got going on here, I've got the vise set pretty wide, and just so the vise is sitting on this lip. It's not actually gripping onto the stator itself, it's just able to sit inside. And as you can see, I can actually rotate it inside of the vise. A couple little spots where the vise isn't perfectly straight and it catches, but for the most part I can rotate it inside of there. I'll line it back up where I need to start at, and I'll just continue tapping it out. I'll hold that metal pin, I'm going to hold the motor housing itself, give it a few taps, felt it move, go over to the next one, a few taps, felt it move, go over to the next one, a few taps, and keep going in a circular motion around it and evenly working out the stator or as evenly as possible. After a few times, I like to pull it up, check it, and see what we have. It looks like it's coming out pretty even as I rotate it. This side might be a bit further out, so I need to hit this side a little bit harder, give this side a little more oomph to it. So I'll work back over there. Light taps, nothing too terribly hard or too terribly aggressive, but enough to get some work done. Here's the back of the switch for the speed regulator, not the speed regulator, the starter windings. The other part of the switch works off of centrifugal force on the rotor shaft and comes in contact with these two brass pieces which connect the circuit to the windings. Looks like this is all we have to work with as far as, oh boy, as far as putting new wires on that, which might be enough. If I take that old grommet off, that goes down in there a little bit. So at this point we've got some cleaning up to do. I'm going to continue cleaning up on that. As far as the edges of this go, I'm not sure if I'm going to end up filing that down so it can fit into the housing without being pressed, but I don't want it to be a loose fit. I don't want it to be wobbling and rattling around inside, but I might take a little bit off the edges just so it fits inside a little easier. That way if I do have to rewire it again or any other reason that I'd have to take this thing apart, because to anything this old, unexpected things happen. I could have a problem with this starter winding and have to work on the switch for that if contacts got bad and needed cleaned or replaced. So that's that, it's out. And here is the inside of that housing. As far as patching these holes go for where I drilled in to get those little pieces of a 16-inch rod to hit the stator so I can pound the stator out. I've heard some people saying that they fill these holes with extra hardware, throw a brass screw in it, or I suppose you could probably weld them, but the inside then won't be perfectly smooth, and you'd have to be picky about getting this inner rim smooth so the stator would sit on it. So I plan on just filling them up with fiberglass, auto body grade fiberglass, and I should sand them smooth and I should work just fine. Here's what I'll be using, Duraglass fiberglass. You could really use any type of auto body filler to fill up these drilled holes. This is what I have. It holds very strong and should last well. I'm just going to open up the can of the fiberglass in. Kind of looks like a green putty, you might think of. And since I'm only filling 3 holes, I don't need a whole lot. So just with my putty knife, I'm going to get a little bit out of there. That's more than I need, but alright, so I'll scooch that aside. Next thing I need is just a little bit of hardener on it. I don't need a whole lot. A little bit of this goes a long way. The more hardener you put in it, the faster it will set up. I believe this is technically called a cream hardener. I'll stir it up. That looks alright. Now normally you do not want to touch the stuff with your hands because it'll stick in your hands and it's not fun to get off. But with working in these tight places, I don't know how else to get into these holes than to actually do that. And the idea is that once this sets up, you can sand it down smooth, do whatever you need. So I'm actually leaving a little bit extra on there and not just trying to flatten it out by hand, because that'll be near impossible. And this way I can actually get it. Alright, I think that'll work. Since I got some extra here on the side, I'm going to carefully remove that without disturbing the patch. This is starting to get hard, so I'm going to leave it sit. Let it harden up. I'm going to try to clean off my hand the best I can. Let's bring you in for a closer look. Hopefully the light's cooperating, but you can see how that hole's patched in. This one is for the stud that holds the casings together. Same deal, there's the patch over on this side. We have the third over here.